Right, I'm back with a new video. Put my Destiny video on hold today about emblem-based pre-orders for something to talk about the biggest news story of the day, which is PlayStation laying off, you guessed it, 8% of its employees, which equates to 900 people. This is still sort of unfolding. They said that all people in the US who are getting laid off would be notified by the end of the day. But we have already heard about a number of places where this is definitely affecting people. What we know so far is the PlayStation UK studio is being closed entirely. Firesprite in the UK is experiencing layoffs. Both of these places are mainly focused on VR developments for PSVR 2 games. And then in the US, we have heard that the three biggest Sony studios are getting hit with layoffs: Naughty Dog, Guerrilla, and Insomniac. I guess Sony Santa Monica wasn't mentioned, and Bungie wasn't mentioned. We know Bungie had 100+ layoffs a couple months ago. We just don't know for sure if there's no more layoffs there, but these are the only ones that have been mentioned so far. There's all these, corporate speak emails and announcements going out about refocusing on our future and blah, 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 blah. But looking at kind of what is actually going on here, the Herman Hulse post actually does provide some significant context for this, in which he's talking about they want to keep making these big single-player games, but they need to kind of expand their horizons in a number of ways, some of which you've already heard about. He talks about expanding into online and live ongoing games, which go to that in a minute, but also putting more games on PC and mobile to get past the PlayStation ecosystem, which is just limited to PlayStation consoles. One of the issues for PlayStation has been that a lot of their margins in gaming are really thin, both on hardware and increasingly on software, where the budgets of these games are just kind of going crazy. I forget the exact number, but like Spider-Man 2 was many dozens of millions of dollars higher. It was like, I forget the budget, was like 200 something million dollars for the sequel, when was it like twice as big as the first game? No, it's just the cost of development is skyrocketing, particularly on these like ridiculously polished high quality Sony games, these single player narrative driven games, which is great because a lot of these are coming out and are really good. But if a lot of these are just one-time purchases, or people just wait for a sale or whatever, and they move on. And Sony believes, probably rightly, that they need more sort of ongoing revenue streams past these just giant games that are just, having bigger and bigger and bigger budgets without the ability to potentially justify those. However, things are going not amazingly for the live service plans. Yes. I've been saying this, and now we have a big obvious exception with Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is a massively successful hit for them. It is doing hundreds of thousands of players on Steam, lots of players on PlayStation. It has gone extremely well for them. It's not a full price game, so they're not getting the full $70 out of that. Its monetization is good, which is, you're able to earn stuff in game. The prices aren't insane, but you could also see, like, because it's good, it might not be the revenue generator for the long term that Sony wants. Also, it's just a couple of weeks, into launch here, and while it is a hit, we don't really know yet what the long-term kind of fate of Helldivers is. But besides Helldivers, we know that Sony has cut its forecast for the number of live games it's trying to get out in half, from 12 to 6. The other 6 may happen later, but we know that with these layoffs, a number of games have been canceled. I don't think we know those games yet, but I would not be shocked to see a couple of those live games in there. We just had the really, really high-profile Last of Us Factions canceled, where that took years of work, potentially delaying Naughty Dog's next games, and with really nothing to show for it. I guess the idea there was that it wasn't even worth launching if it would be really expensive to run, if monetization wasn't going to work well. We don't know exactly why it was canceled, but I'm guessing it just wasn't going to be an amazing final product, or it was going to take too much time to get out. And then obviously there's the Bungie of it all, where it feels like Sony bought Bungie as some sort of magic wand that they could wave over their studios and teach them all how to make profitable live services. But as we know, Bungie has struggled significantly, definitely in the past year, where they've missed their revenue forecasts, player morale, worker morale, and player count have gone way down in the wake of Lightfall. Just wrote a thing debating about Final Shape pre-orders, which the specific thing we're talking about I don't find accurate, but it stands to reason that Final Shape pre-orders may not be what they want. We also have pretty significant delays for future Bungie projects where they've been working on incubated project for years and we have not seen any of them. Marathon is supposed to be out in 2025, but that's a long way off when all these cuts and things are happening right now. There's a couple other incubated projects, but we don't have any timelines on those, and we don't really know what monetization and is even going to be like for Marathon past like a normal battle pass and cash shop or whatever, and if that's going to be enough to motivate significant revenue. And then Sony recently has said specifically Bungie needs to get better about its business side and delivery timelines. They have said that kind of broadly about Sony in general, and really this isn't the biggest shock, unfortunately. Like, we've seen layoffs literally everywhere, and we have been talking about how Sony has been having problems with these enormous budgets. And again, outside of Helldivers 2, like, their live service plans don't really seem to be taking shape. There's also sort of unknown things like, oh, everyone, PSVR 2 is a hit and it's a good VR system and it's selling well. And like, yeah, okay, maybe, but VR has not evolved past being a niche. And a lot of these layoffs are targeting VR developers. I do wonder if Sony is going to start pulling back VR, not to say they're just going to kill the PSVR 2 right now, but I don't think VR is a really, explosive area for growth that I don't know if Sony's necessarily continued investment there is going to be worth it. They have weird stuff like the PlayStation Portal, where how is that doing? Like, yes, it's sold out, but how many did they even make? Like, they're just sort of doing these weird hardware experiments that don't really make a lot of sense. We're going to get a PS5 Pro, but given their like slim margins on consoles already, like, is this thing going to show up at $600? And like, who is that going to be a significant amount of sales to really boost their fortunes there? So all of these kind of add up to like, it seemed pretty clear that like layoffs to some degree were coming. However, not to say these are all justified. We have ridiculously high executive pay. We have poor management leading to this kind of situation in general. Like, if this was something that's unsustainable, if leadership is not able to figure out how to wrangle these budgets, that's on them. And it is certainly almost, positively not on these 900 workers that are being let go that have nothing to do with these sort of macro issues. Either there was overhiring or mismanagement or whatever. In this case, at least, we have Jim Ryan leaving, where he's the one that delivered this news instead of the interim CEO, Totoki, and Herman Hulst. But yeah, it's still sort of unclear why Jim Ryan's leaving. Like, is it poor performance, or did he just want to go get a new job somewhere else, which is what he seems to be doing? So in that case, that is an executive leaving. Again, this is not like, this should not be a console war thing. In terms of people being laid off, it sucks to make this a console war thing anyway. And also of note, like, Xbox, has its own issues. We've talked about many Xbox issues, recently with how much can Game Pass grow? Like, will they be able to sustain things as they have increasingly high budgets for their own games? How do their live prospects look? Like, it's a whole kind of other set of questions in terms of, what Xbox's future is. And they have very different problems with Sony, but, the whole industry has problems right now. I just read this is 7,000 layoffs in 2 months. I think there were 10,000 total last year. So this just keeps coming. It is usually like 8 to 12% of whatever these companies are. And if you are a company that has dodged this, like, congrats, because you are really not the norm right now. And obviously this is not going to be the last we see of this. It sucks. There's no way around it. It is hard to blame anyone but management of a lot of these companies. If they overhired during COVID, they shouldn't have overhired during COVID. There were ways around this where this did not need to happen. There are ways to keep budgets in line here with different production timelines and like use of resources and all this stuff. And again, I just don't think any of this falls on the workers who are getting laid off, and they pay the price. So really, really bad day for PlayStation, but obviously we've had a lot of bad days for a lot of companies, a lot of developers in the past year and a half now. So there will probably be more information coming out about what other studios are being hit, what games have been canceled. Like this happened like 2 hours ago, so it's still pretty new, but we have a good amount of information about what's happening. Sony tried to be transparent about the context of all this happening, so that's some information, but by the end of the day, again, all the US people being laid off will probably know about that, and then we'll have a lot more of a clear picture of who exactly is getting hit. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.